Hey, Butch here, heading out to my barn, do some work today. Here in northern Illinois, I think it's about 3 degrees out today. It's going to drop down to 0. But my barn, as we walk in here, is nice and warm in here. Except this cold weather makes it a little difficult to really keep the place warm without burning through a whole bunch of propane here. So as I said, this is Butch, and I'm doing this as my first one here. I got some projects I've been working on, and some of my friends said I should probably film some of the stuff that I'm working on. So that's what we're going to try to do here. I'm actually a retired collision repair instructor, been a collision technician before that, so I got about 40 years in experience here, and I've been doing a lot of stuff on the side for many years, probably 40 or 50 cars. So I got a little bit of experience, so I'm going to show you some things that I do. I'm not going to say that what I do is the best way or the only way to do it. It is the way I do it, how I learned. It works pretty well for me. But there are many different ways of doing things. I have many cars that I've painted for my friends 20, 30 years ago, and they still look good. So evidently the way I've been doing it must be working pretty good. So do a little quick walk around in my shop. This is not a huge shop, decent size. I got a 36 by 36 pole barn and got it all insulated. Got some various projects that going on in here and working on getting all the equipment that I need to get things set up. So you can actually do quite a bit in a home garage with not necessarily having to buy a lot of equipment, but you do need a little bit of stuff in that to keep things going. Some of the projects I got working on, this one's way on the back burner here. This is a frame for a 1969 Impala. That's actually my car, first car I ever bought. Bought it from my Scoutmaster for only 200 bucks. So I've had it apart probably for 30 years now. So that's one of the things that I want to get done now that I'm retired. But got to get some money to get that done. So had some other projects that I'm working on. This Blazer has all been redone. This one actually belongs to me. I'm going to put it up for sale when I'm done. Paint and body work's all done. Had new panels put on it and that. Just got to finish up some of the engine work and get it running and that. So need a little extra money, so I decided to take on a little side job here, and that's what we're going to be talking about and working on today. This is a 1967 Ford pickup truck. Belongs to a friend of mine. I'm going to film some stuff later here, put some pictures in of some of the work that I've done, because I've already done a bunch of stuff to the truck already. That I did not videotape it. So bed's all done, front end's all done, hood, fenders, all that's all finished. So now I'm left with the cab and the doors. So as you can see, it's at a point where the cab's been put in primer and the inside of the cab's been all painted. So that's where I'm at right now. The primer that's on it, I call that my first prime. So I put down some epoxy primer on the bare metal first. Gives me my corrosion protection. Takes care of adhesion to the bare metal. And then I put down 3 coats of surfacer, a primer surfacer. And that's what gives me some film build so that I can block it out and get it nice and straight. That's where I'm at right now. So you can see I've sprayed it with the surfacer, and then I have a guide coat over it. That's what this black is. It's just kind of some cheap black spray paint, spray on it, and then I'll sand all that off. That'll show me any highs and low spots, and then it'll get primed again with another 3 coats of surfacer, and then that'll get guide coated and wet sanded down, and it'll be ready for paint. Inside the cab, don't go through that much trouble because it's the inside. Basically just kind of sanded it down and painted it. But we did do quite a bit of work on it as well, which I'll explain here in a couple minutes. The door jambs, you can see I didn't really guide coat the door jambs because we don't need to block those out. That'll just get scuffed. That beige material you see on there, that's a seam sealer, a 2-part seam sealer from SEM. That's the way Ford did it. They actually put some seam sealer down on there to help protect it, but it looks like when they the way they built it, the seam sealer went down and then the parts were welded together, because some of the places where the seam sealer was left, when I chiseled it off before we sandblasted the truck, there was rust underneath it, so it looks like they went right over bare metal with it. So now the truck's all been sandblasted and the epoxy primer went down, and then the surfacer went down, and then we sanded, and then I put the seam sealer down over all the seams, tried to get everything covered as best I can. So this truck actually came from South Dakota, was in pretty good shape, but like typical vehicles of that age, they do have some rust here and there. So the floor pans were rusted out, the driver and passenger floor pans, so those got replaced. The beam that goes underneath it, where you can see where the two seat belt bolts here mount to, that's where there's a big support beam that goes across there. That's something that's reproduced, so it was rusted out on the two ends, replaced that whole piece. And then down in this other area, I had to fabricate a few panels, but they were basically just flat panels, so it was pretty easy. Rest of the cab was in good shape inside, so we got it all painted up. The roof on this thing, somebody actually cut a hole in the roof, put an air conditioner up there at one time, and then somebody else got a hold of the truck and got rid of the air conditioner and welded a patch in there and just warped the freaking hell out of the roof. It was just destroyed. So we ended up cutting the roof off, just the outer skin, and then I found a used roof that someone cut off an old rusty truck that wasn't worth fixing, and we put the roof on this truck here, and that solved our problems. So we had to take one truck that was going to the junkyard dying and saved another truck, and then right across here is where I cut it, and up across the back. This is nice and sturdy here, so it's a little bit easier to weld without warping. And then all along the rain gutter, I took and cut it out just like it would have come out if I would have bought a new panel. So there's just a bunch of spot welds there, and then cleaned it all up, and then ended up welding in the back, but glued it, or I should say structural adhesive in the front, because I don't have a spot welder to weld across here, but I was able to do that, and came out pretty good. Go around here to the front, and you can see what's kind of going on here on the roof. Get rid of some of this dust here. So inside the that's a seam sealer, self-leveling seam sealer. So after glued it in, and put that self-leveling seam sealer on, and then went ahead and sealed it all off real nice, just like the factory. So you can see up here on the roof, I've been doing a little bit of block sanding. Got the guide coat on, but this is what we're looking for when we're block sanding. So you can see here, the guide coat's not coming off because that's a low spot. Over here, we hit the black epoxy primer, so that tells us stop. Can't go any further because now we're going to hit bare metal, and we don't want to expose the bare metal. That's what our epoxy primer is to give us that corrosion protection on the bare metal. So if you go across here, you can just barely feel it's a low spot. Sometimes if there's enough surfacer on there, you might be able to block it all the way out, but you can see we're starting to hit the primer here. So this is about as far as we can go. So now I'll just go in here and scuff this black guide coat off, and then I'll put just a little thin coat of filler across there and feather it out and try to get rid of that. The roof is going to get painted white, so it's not super important that it's perfectly straight, but we try to get it as straight as I can. You can see I got a nice long Durablock that I can block across the top, and try to get it nice and straight. And I'm using 180 to block it, so I block it with 180, and like I said, then it gets done again with another 3 coats of surfacer, and then that's going to get wet sanded with 400 before it gets ready to paint. Big thing with this is to keep your paper clean. I take a little wooden paint paddle and I hit it on here and knock this stuff off as it builds up, otherwise it doesn't cut nice and straight.